So when we in the NDC engage the youth, as we did yesterday on International Youth Day, and you saw that the youth took center stage. One brilliant young person after the other elucidated the problems we have and the solutions that the NDC was offering. And it gives me confidence that the NDC's future and perhaps Ghana's future is quite bright because we are a conveyor belt of talent. And you heard the young people. These were not old grumpy men defining the narrative. These were young people, 20-something-year-olds, taking charge and engaging their colleagues on what the issues are. So, Randy, what are the propositions? What are the offerings? President Mahama on various platforms has indicated clearly that the number one priority is fixing the economy, which Bawumia and his colleagues in the MPP have completely destroyed with incompetence, mismanagement, and outright corruption and waste of our resources. Empty, vacant, vacuous sloganeering. That is what they have done in the last few years. President Mahama says he will restore prudence and proper management. He will restore confidence. Randy, the biggest threat to the stability of our currency is loss of investor confidence. The Bank of Ghana itself has said that in the space of 12 months, over $6 billion was spirited out of this economy by disenchanted investors. And that is what led to a plummeting of our currency. Right now, the IMF has asked them to boost the reserves, and they are struggling to meet that commitment. So President Mahama says, even the change in government will send a certain signal to investors that we are ready to do business and that we are ready to chart a new course. So proper economic management with the aim of achieving stability and overcoming the self-inflicted difficulties is topmost on the agenda for President Mahama. And he has articulated this when he met the media. And you were not there, but your colleagues found out what he had in terms of doing that. But immediately following that is the issue of unemployment. And Randy, for young people, when I go to my rounds on AAK, Randy, young person after young person after young person reiterates the dire straits they are in because of unemployment and the lack of incomes. So President Mahama says that unemployment is high on the agenda. He intends to turn this economy into one that runs 24 hours a day. 3 shifts. So a job hitherto done by one person will be done by 3 people. And my brothers here, whose favorite campaign strategy is to dance comically on stages, say that we don't have demand. Andy, I can bet that at least 3 of the things on your body this morning are imported. A country that has the sort of import volumes that we have has more than enough demand to meet any kind of production we can do. The challenge is that we don't have the capacity to produce enough. That's all. Fuseni's glasses are imported. And my shoe is imported. My belt is imported. The shirt I'm wearing is imported. The jacket I'm wearing is imported. Well, these days there are a few people who do these things. But an overwhelming majority of the things that we consume in this country are imported. So if you have that level of import, you cannot speak about not having demand. There is demand that we can't meet, which is the reason why we import. In the advanced countries, who we look up to, they are not that reliant on imports. Many of them are self-sufficient, and they import only in strategic areas. Even then, they make effort over time to bridge the gap. Today, there's a bit of a trade war between America and China over microchips, because they don't want China to have dominance over them in that sector. So they are seeking to close the gap. What has been lacking is a proper incentive and environment. But if your interest rates are at 40%, how would anybody feel incentivized to produce anything? If you have a business, you are a manufacturing concern, let's say a medium-scale manufacturing concern, and you have to go to the bank to borrow at 40%, why would you be encouraged to even pump more into your business? How are you going to expand? Because the moment you do that, you are going to have to pass it on to the consumer. And the consumer is most likely to get that same item imported at a cheaper rate if you discount import duties.
Yeah, Randy.
And if you are importing machinery to boost your production, and you have to pay sometimes twice the amount at which you imported the item, or 1/2, or even sometimes the same amount at which you have imported the item, how are you going to be able to invest? And you need vans for your distribution chain. And you import those vans at breakneck import rates. How are you going to be able to produce? Electricity cost has gone through the roof, Randy. There's no incentive for those in the manufacturing bracket. People engaged in the service sector are having to break their backs just to meet their utility costs, water and electricity. Fuel, Randy, the price of fuel. If your machines depend on fuel to be fired, how are you going to survive in this harsh climate? So President Mahama says these things will be taken care of. And there are institutions that he created before exiting power, right in the Exim Bank, for instance. There you can get money to prop up some of these businesses. By doing that, you create expansion in economic activity, which then requires additional hands. So something that was done by one person has to be done by two people, because the human body can only last so long. 8 hours, 8 hours, 8 hours. That is a concrete measure that you take to ensure that the unemployment issue is addressed. Randy, there are also people who are entrepreneurial in nature. They don't like to work for somebody. They like to work for themselves, which is great. Because at the end of the day, the more entrepreneurs you have, the more businesses you have, which then in itself creates additional employment space. But they require some help. Those in the fintech sector. Randy, President Mahama has spoken about a $50 million fintech fund. And there's a man who has created $250 million, $300 million funds. Gives us $250 million per annum. So it is not a $50 million fund that he cannot create. There is a man who left buffers for Bawumia and his charges to come and squander. The sinking fund had in excess of $300 million. The road fund, we left 600 million Ghana cedis in that fund. And the get fund, sorry, I beg your pardon, ESLA. Are you aware that last year they got 7 billion Ghana cedis? This year, they projected to get 9 billion Ghana cedis. If you put all that they've received in the last few years together, it tops 40 billion Ghana cedis. This was created by President Mahama. So when he tells you he will create a $50 million fintech fund, you know exactly that the man knows what he is talking about. Right? In the same ICT space, he has spoken about the 1 million coders program. And we see that Bawumia has been quick to plagiarize that. He has been quick to basically repeat the same thing that President Mahama says he will do, which then begs the question, what in God's name he is doing in government at the moment? And if 1 million young people are going to be taken through coding, Randy, you are talking of fantastic employment opportunities. He spoke about replicating the Accra Digital Center concept. And the Accra Digital Center, as you see it, if it were running at full throttle, should be able to take 8,000 people running 8-hour shifts 3 times a day. That was the original design. Of course, our friends came and messed it up. But there's hope, because once we take power, we will go back to the original idea. But this will be replicated, at least in the major cities across Ghana. Because ICT is speculating and penetrating every facet of our life. And then he has spoken about how, in the face of these excruciating hardships brought on by Bawumia's mishandling of the economy and mismanagement of the economy, he wants to come to the aid of level 100 university students. Andy, the same arguments that hold true for why there should be free SHS holds in the case of tertiary students. Because it is the same parents whose wards move from SHS level to university level. Andy, ally. So if...
What is the problem that you seek to solve?
The problem is, Randy, the problem is of stems from some of the arguments that our friends have been making. They say that parents cannot afford between 800 to 1,200, which is the fees, yearly fees of SHS students.
That was then, though. What
yes.
Parents are spending now is something.
Yeah, no, I'm talking just what government absorbs. What government absorbs, if we were to ring fence the argument. So if government absorbs between 800 to 1,200 for students, because according to them, their parents cannot pay. Randy, how are those same parents overnight then able to afford between 2,000 and 4,000 Ghana cedis at university level? So the same arguments that hold true for SHS education holds true for university education. And Randy, if you look at it, by virtue of the numbers, currently some educational experts say that we have anything between 120 to 150,000 university students alone. If you add other tertiary students, like those in the technical universities, those in the colleges of education, and other such institutions, We are talking close to 200,000 Ghana cedis. Randy, if we can pay fees for up to 1.2 million people, why should we not be able to do it for 200,000 people? In any event, equity requires that is done. Because there are 3 ranks in the education sector. There's basic education, there's senior high school education, there's tertiary education. This government, for some reason, only think that the only thing that is important in our country's life is SHS education. But we think that there's basic education, there's also tertiary education. So along the entire education value chain, the same opportunities have to be offered. So Randy, if you happen to enter the university as a first year student, and that is often the challenge, really. As I sit here, I have been inundated with demands from my constituents for some assistance for them to be able to pay their entry fees. So President Mahama says he will absorb it. And when you do the numbers, even if you use current university populations, we are talking something under 250 million Ghana cedis, which is 10% of what is spent on free SHS. I don't see how anybody who supports free SHS can have a qualm with this one. So if you are a university student, first year student, entering the university and wondering how you are going to be able to pay your fees, President Mahama has come to your aid. He says he will foot that. But the same holds for all tertiary students. The question immediately has arisen as to what will happen once they leave.
Yeah, after first year.
After first year, the fees reduce substantially. I have been there, so I know. And in that regard, what we call the Students' Loan Scheme Plus, which was something that was introduced in the latter part of President Mahama's administration, will kick into place so that you are then able to fund your education on the back of this. So it is a well-structured, well-thought-out plan.
So you are saying that those who will enjoy this first year thing,
sure,
from the second year, they would have to rely on the student loan.
Students' Loan Plus. So what that means
why can't they start with it?
Because they are about to enter. When you are about to enter, the processes are such that you cannot latch onto it now. So you need to be in there for them to be able to assess you and then be able to do that. Of course, in future, we should be able to do it from the very onset. But at the moment, Randy, this is being done in the midst of unprecedented economic hardships. The kind of hardships we are facing today have never before happened in our history. Let me remind you once again that a quarter of our population has gone without a food. So a population that cannot afford food on this table will be hard-pressed to cough up between 2,000 and 4,000 Ghana cedis as university fees. So even if you were to consider the economic situation inflicted on Ghanaians by Obamia's hopelessness at the head of the economic management team, this is more than justified. So Randy, this will be done amongst other important interventions that we want to undertake. And of course, Randy, you are aware of the governance reforms that President Mahama has spoken about. And again, even the cuts in governmental expenditure. In 2020, over 4 billion Ghana cedis was allocated to the Office of Government Machinery. 4 billion Ghana cedis. President Mahama has made it clear that he will cut the numbers drastically. He says that he will work with 60 ministers and deputy ministers. And all those amorphous agencies that do nothing beyond replicating the work or duplicating the work of existing agencies will go. And I don't believe that we need a free SHS secretariat to be able to pay fees of senior high schools. The Ghana Education Service, perhaps, is the most well-established, well-heeled government institution we have. And they've been around for over 80 years. It is not beyond them to coordinate the payment of fees of pupils or students at SHS level, for which reason we need a whole secretariat. And the Ministry of Trade and Industry has been involved in trade facilitation for decades. We don't need a 1D, 1F secretariat to do that. All these are ways that this government has found to drain the public purse of vital resources. And President Mahama says he will consolidate. In some instances, he will merge and realign these agencies so that we make significant savings that we can channel into these important expenditure items like education, tertiary education in this particular instance. So for me, President Mahama offers a clear path to reviving our economy and re-injecting hope in Ghanaians. He offers a clear path to developing our country systematically through well-thought-through policies, not ad hoc, shoot from the hip policies like the NPP is known for doing. They would dance and drum and sing about policies that go no. Randy, where is NAPCO now? NAPCO, where is it?
NAPCO?
Yes.
Maybe Hussein will tell us.
He has no clue where it is now, because the point is that it was thought of hurriedly in the wake of the 2020 elections to deceive the Ghanaian electorate, give false hope to the Ghanaian youth that they were going to get immediate employment, only for them to be thrown onto the street. And Randy, I'm aware that up to now, or up to this point as I speak to you, thousands of them, if not tens of thousands of them, are still owed arrears. So even the money to pay these people is non-existent. And yet this government said that it created employment. So we believe that more sustainable employment is the way to go. The Ghanaian youth is tired of having to have their hopes raised and dashed as and when politicians, especially in the NPP, feel like it. We believe the time has come for more sustainable employment creation. And that will be done on the back of substantive offerings, like the 24-hour economy, the 1 million Codes program, the FinTech Fund, the 300,000 ICT-related jobs. President Mahama has spoken about a $3 billion investment in ICT. He has spoken about business process outsourcing. He has spoken about knowledge process outsourcing. These are credible, tangible ways that you create employment for a sprawling unemployed mass as we have at this moment. So we believe that these offerings will find favor with the Ghanaian people who already have been buffeted, impoverished, and left anguished by the mismanagement of Baumia and his colleagues in government.
Right.